Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today is October 2nd, 2018, and today we're going to go through a pretty long 2018 Senate election prediction. So the reason why this one is going to be a lot longer than the other ones is mainly because we are getting very close to the general election. We are around 30 days away from the midterm elections, and a lot has happened since the last time I made a prediction. So this map is going to look pretty different compared to what you might normally expect, but some of the calls may be just ranged a little bit differently in favor of the GOP or the Democrats, depending on which political party is somehow doing better after the past recent 15 days. And going on, I will do an updated Senate election prediction once a week. And I know that seems like it's very constant, but keep in mind that the Senate map is ever changing, and especially with a bunch of October surprises that are expected to come out this month, this should be not really unexpected. But for right now, we're going to just start off with the Senate map. We're going to start off with the safe states like Washington, California, and Hawaii. Those states which are pretty much not really contested that much: Maryland, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine. All of which we pretty much expect to go overwhelmingly for the Democrats, along with New York. And then the general Minnesota election, they have safe states for the GOP. And here's where the numbers really hurt the Democrats. They currently have 42 Republicans and 35 Democrats. It may seem like the Republicans only have a slight advantage. Take away those 12, the Democrats only have 23 seats, not up for re-election, and the Republicans have 42. In order for the GOP to retain the majority, they need 50 seats because of Vice President Mike Pence. As for the Democrats, they need 51 because they do not have that vice presidential tiebreaker. So, in terms of safe states for the Republican Party, we can fill in states like Nebraska, Wyoming, Utah, Mississippi, and the special election, which puts the Republicans at 47 seats straight off the bat, which means they only need to retain 3 out of the remaining 18 toss-up races in order to win and retain the majority in the United States Senate. And that may seem like an uphill climb for Democrats. However, a number of these states are probably still going to go to the Democrats just by narrower margins than previously expected. For Minnesota special election and New Mexico, those are states that we're pretty comfortable putting in the likely column, along with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Almost all data is suggesting that these states itself, there will be a couple other states in the likely column, but we'll pretty much talk about these 3 Rust Belt states. 3 states that went for Trump in 2016. Another state that actually did go to Trump in 2016 was the state of Ohio, and that one has also moved into the likely column. If we look at the data from the number of these races, sure, these senators aren't necessarily the most popular, but Republicans aren't too popular there either. When it comes down to these specific Senate races, these Democrats are polling very well. Even if their approval ratings may not be the best, they're also doing very well in other polls. So you can be elected at a low approval rating. Donald Trump did prove that, and if Hillary Clinton had won, she would have proved that as well. So Tammy Baldwin, pretty much 11% approval rating of more. Okay, so when I refer to approval ratings, I mean 11% more of voters approve than disapprove of her. So 11% for Tammy Baldwin. For Bob Casey, it's 12%. Sherrod Brown, it is, 16%. And then for, let's see if we can find the other one. I don't think they cover the one in Michigan because Debbie Stabenow is pretty much solidly going to win that race, which is not unexpected whatsoever. But for right now, the Democrats have 41 seats. So they're at a point where they could take back the majority in theory. For the Republicans, they're at 47. Keep that in mind. So 12 purely contested races. Actually, not so much. So Virginia is the last race that we're actually going to characterize in the Democratic column, and that's the last state we will characterize in the likely column for either political party. All of these races will be within 5% or less, including states like Texas, ranging all the way to states like New Jersey. So right now we have 11 contested races. The Republicans need 3, the Democrats need 9, and it's going to be very hard for Democrats to reach this number. One reason is because the state of North Dakota is already rated as a GOP state according to 538. Now, the reason why it maybe seems surprising that I'm mentioning that North Dakota is a GOP state is probably because there's a Democratic incumbent senator there. So if the Democrat loses there, that's the first gain for the GOP. If the GOP gains seats in this 2018 midterm elections, it's going to be very hard to make an argument that this was a Democratic wave year. Yes, the House can go. That's expected. But if the Senate doesn't budge even an inch in the favor of the Democrats, it's going to look very bad for them, considering they're going to lead into 2020. And they're going to need a lot in terms of, Supreme Court nominees. Let's say Ginsburg retires. And then they need to vacate a seat, they nominate someone. The Democrats are going to want that majority to block it into the 2020 presidential election. So things like that are going to be very important for Democrats, but it doesn't look like they're performing too well, considering that most of the toss-up races are in the Democratic column. The same thing can't be said for the House, though. There are currently, I believe, 39 Republican seats in the toss-up column and only 2 Democratic seats. So obviously the House definitely at a better standpoint for the Democrats than the Senate, but for right now, the Senate doesn't look too sharp at this point. So the state of New Jersey is the state that I actually want to mention. So that one I think could be within 1 to 5%, not Delaware. The state of New Jersey is what I meant. For the pure reason that Bob Menendez isn't too popular. I think this race definitely could narrow down because New Jersey isn't that type of partisan Democratic state where they'll only vote for a Democrat. And they've had a Republican governor before, Chris Christie, and I wouldn't put it past them to just I would say that they possibly could elect a Republican senator, and the only reason why 2018 may seem impossible for that is because it's a Democratic wave year, but you have to keep in mind that some of these voters purely vote off candidates, not just political parties. If you look in other parts or certain districts, yes, they are extremely partisan, but others may not be. It does come down to the candidates for a couple of these states, and New Jersey is one of those weird states that doesn't really vote based on party affiliation. The reason why I say weird is because that's not what you might expect when you stereotype this state that overwhelmingly went to Hillary Clinton back in 2016. Very surprising to see 3 states that Donald Trump won in 2016 somehow more solidly blue than a state like New Jersey. But again, it comes down to the candidates. So right now, the Democrats at 43 seats, the Republicans at 47. As for the other leaning Democratic states, you could argue West Virginia would be a leaning Democratic state. If we look at polling data from the state of West Virginia, Joe Manchin is doing pretty good. I really don't want to keep flipping back to this because my computer's probably going to overload. It's only a MacBook they seem like they run smoothly, but not the best 100%. But Joe Manchin leads by 9.4%. So the reason why I think this race could narrow down leading into the elections, I think Donald Trump is definitely going to hound the state because a new poll shows him at 62%, but also shows Joe Manchin winning by 9%. So he's definitely going to try to narrow up this race. I think by the end of 2018 that this race could be narrower and less than 5%. Like the rest of these races, I don't think they're going to be blowouts for either candidates, but if it is, that's definitely something to note. So right now, with the Republicans at 47, Democrats at 44, where can the Democrats have other gains? So for right now, Montana, that's not a gain, but it's a hold for the Democrats. Definitely did narrow down in recent polling data to 2 to 4 point races, but that's pretty much expected in a Republican state. Montana is still expected to go to John Tester at the end of 2018. And we look in a state like Nevada, which is actually also narrowed down, but Jackie Rosen has been pretty consistent in terms of her numbers there. So Nevada, I can actually be comfortable enough to put that one in the Democratic column. For some reason, Martha McSally is failing to gain back the Republican vote. Many people love to argue we'll come back to her after the primaries. It's happening pretty little in Tennessee, but in Arizona, not so much. There was a poll that showed McSally ahead. Then every other poll after that showed Kirsten Sinema ahead. So we're going to come back to Arizona, but it's just a race that really is letting down Republicans for a number of reasons. But the state of Texas, for right now, goes to the Republican Party. Now, that is probably going to be one of the most contested Republican states. Besides Arizona, Nevada, and Tennessee, which may seem like a number of states, I think these could all be equally as close. Tennessee, which is pretty surprising, probably should be a little bit better for the GOP than Texas, but it isn't. Texas definitely has a real shot of electing its first Democratic senator in a very long time. Keep in mind, Ted Cruz hasn't been in that long, since 2012, and then went on into 2018, of course, this year, and is running for re-election. So a number of things probably aren't helping him. His approval rating isn't too bad, to be completely honest with you. It's at 49% in the state of Texas. So it doesn't look like he's at his worst position ever. However, when it comes down to the way that people perceive Beto O'Rourke, it looks like he's a candidate who actually cares. I see Barack Obama type charisma in Beto O'Rourke. I definitely think he's going to eventually run for president, even if he doesn't win here. He may go for another elected office or go back to being a representative and then eventually lead his way into the presidency, where I definitely do think he has a straight shot at winning, mainly because he's from the state of Texas, and Texas is that top Democratic state that people are going to be turning to 2024, 2028 to solidify a Democratic victory based off changing demographics, the way that voting bases are moving around, not just demographic changes, but also how voting ages changes based off younger voters moving into the electorate and voting. So Texas is going to be one of those interesting states. For right now, I'm going to say Ted Cruz wins by 2%, which gives him a victory enough to be put into the leaning GOP column. But eventually, by the end of 2018, I definitely could see the state actually moving back into the tilt column. But it's not going to touch likely or safe for a pretty long time. Now we have 6 contested races: Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana, North Dakota, and Arizona. I'm just going to start listing them off. So for right now, Arizona actually goes into the tilt Democratic column. And for the reason being, I think this race definitely will narrow into 2018. But I think Kirsten Sinema could narrowly edge out this race. As for the state of North Dakota, I'm going to put the state in the leaning GOP column, nearing 5%. And that's the first pickup for the GOP out of all these Democratic states. It may seem surprising that we're seeing a state like North Dakota go to the GOP, but not too unexpected. If this state is already rated as a GOP state, they're probably going to retain the state, leading by 4%, then 4%, and now 10%. They definitely did have an improvement over time. And Kevin Cramer, Although we're seeing similarities to what we saw in 2012, this is not a presidential election year. Yes, turnout will be pretty high amongst Democrats, but where are the Democrats in North Dakota? That pretty much only helps in states like Florida, Texas, Arizona, where the Democratic population actually does have an effect compared to North Dakota, which is a solidly Republican state. You can have all the turnout you want amongst Democrats. Republicans, with their simple turnout, can just override them. So for right now, North Dakota goes into the leaning GOP column. As for the state of Indiana and Florida have now moved into the leaning Democratic column. Indiana and Florida at a time were both in the tilt Democratic column. I'm comfortable enough characterizing both as a leaning Democratic states. Looking at the new data from the state of Florida, Rick Scott's not doing as well as he should be, especially leading this close into the election season. Again, we are 30 days away. A lot can change in October, as 2016 showed. However, for right now, as where we stand, I think by the end of 2018, if the trend continues and nothing alters the race, which I know isn't impossible, but I can't predict scandals, I think these races definitely will go to the Democratic Party. Indiana not being focused on a lot by the GOP, which is failure on their part, but I definitely see the argument as to why they're trying to retain Tennessee, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and also gain in states like North Dakota, Missouri, and Florida. But Indiana, West Virginia, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Rust Belt states, technical, not West Virginia, not so much Indiana or Ohio, but I guess you could say with those three Rust Belt states and then the other swing states, they could be targeting them, but it could be a waste of money by the end of 2018. So 49 Democrats, 49 Republicans. For right now, we're going to move Tennessee into the tilt Democratic column, and we're going to move Missouri into the leaning Democratic column. So this is the first time in a while the Democrats have actually led in terms of the numbers. Now, that seems pretty surprising. The reason behind it is we're seeing North Dakota go into the Republican column. Tennessee actually, I'm going to make a call and move it back into the pure toss-up column. That is a race that's why I was in the tilt column. It wasn't in the leaning column. I do think this race will be less than 1% if it is going to be a characterized race. So I'm actually not comfortable enough calling it for the Democrats at this point. The Democrats definitely could end up with a tie, but the Republicans do have possibilities of making gains. For right now, Tennessee, I'm going to move from the tilt Democratic column back into the pure toss-up column because it's going to be extremely hard to characterize this race itself. And when it comes down to it, look at the 2018 Senate forecast. I'm disagreeing a lot with what 538 says. They say that the Republicans are likely to keep control. However, it doesn't say what numbers they're likely to stay with. In North Dakota, Kevin Cramer is expected to win, but in Florida, Bill Nelson is expected to win. In Missouri, Bill Nelson is expected to win. If we go over to Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn is expected to win, but I think Phil Bredesen can narrowly edge this one out. We go over to the state, and it doesn't look too good in terms of the Real Clear Politics average. But right now, if we just look at the state itself, Marsha Blackburn at this point probably going to do better than people expected before. I mean, yes, Bredesen did lead by considerable amounts before. It's actually in a tie right now, but if we look at the numbers before the primaries, the Democrats did pretty well. +2, +10, +3, +6, and then Blackburn +4, Bredesen +2, Blackburn +3, Bredesen +5. Different numbers, in different time periods as well. So the most recent poll shows Bredesen leading by 5%. We're definitely going to see a very contested race there with an actual time actually going to keep that one in the super tied column, I guess, and keep the Republicans at 49 seats, the Democrats at 50, which finishes off our map in the 2019 Senate with 49 Republicans and 50 Democrats. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.